This is the business of sports.
The business of sports can be intimidating or hard for a starter to break into.
We really appreciate when our owners are actually there, with us through the journey.
Teams, ours especially, have been very intentional to diversify at all levels of the company.
I think we're in the golden years for the NFL and college football.
Our demographic reach has continued to expand.
This is going to be really unlocking the streaming platform for sports fans.
Sports valuations are rising. We'll see when they peak.
You don't have to be the best in your sport to make a whole ton of money.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Damian, Sassower, and Vanessa Perdomo. Scarlet is on assignment. Coming up, we are all about racing. Yes! The Indianapolis 500 is this weekend, and we'll get you ready for it with IndyCar and Indianapolis Motor Speedway President Doug Boles.
The racing over the last few years has been really good here at the Speedway. There's a lot of tradition around the Speedway, the number of people that come back for generations and year over year. And we're beginning to build stars again in the IndyCar series like we had several years ago.
We'll also hear from trailblazing NASCAR driver Katherine Legge. All of that and more is on the way on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, Amazon is betting big that sports, with its Prime Video streaming platform, will carry it through. Its sports lineup touts New York Yankees games, NASCAR, boxing, and will add NBA games next season. And the crown jewel at the moment is the rights to NFL Thursday night football games. And Amazon, they believe that this year's slate of games will be its strongest yet. Joining us now to dive into Amazon's big sports plans for Prime Video is Amazon VP and Global Head of Prime Video Sports, Jay Marine, as well as Bloomberg News Media reporter Hannah Miller.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for having me.
There's a lot to talk about. I want to start, first of all, you guys got the Thursday night viewership.
Yep.
And I'm looking at this. I got a lot to say about this NFL schedule, but I'm going to start with the Thursday night schedule, which is a pretty solid schedule. You guys coming out the blocks week 2, September 11th. Commanders at the Packers.
Absolutely. This schedule is the best Thursday night football schedule we've ever seen. And it shows you the continued trust that the NFL has in us. I know we'll walk through it, but we have 10 divisional matchups. We start in Lambeau, as you said, with the Commanders coming. Huge Black Friday and Christmas games we can talk about. And then, we have that little Detroit game versus Dallas. So you can decide which team's America's team.
Well, Jay, let's jump right in. You graduated from University of Michigan. You grew up in Michigan. I sit here next to Michael Barr and all. Here is Detroit, Michigan. Week 8, Minnesota Vikings at Los Angeles Chargers. J.J. McCarthy against his former coach. Won it for you, Michigan Blue Boys. That's a pretty. Did you have anything to do with that? Let us know right now.
I'd like to take credit for that. I'd also like to take credit for the national championship. If anyone did not. It was glorious. I did happen to be at the Rose Bowl and the national championship. Were you there?
I wish I was, man. I wish I was at that Super Bowl, by the way, that we see. I want to check the pronoun here so you all understand why. Jay, obviously also a native Detroiter in that area.
Yes, sir.
And when we hosted the Super Bowl, I wanted so much to go. My best friend, he got to go because at the time he worked with Xerox. So he had to man all the Xerox machines. I said, man, how'd it go? Can I carry your luggage? Can I do anything for you, man? It's like, this has got to be, again, you've got, and Hannah, jump in here, with this schedule for the NFL is going to be very exciting for you guys.
Yeah, like I said, we could not be happier. When you look at our audience, has been up over almost 40% from the first year of Thursday Night Football through to our third year. So continued growth in the audience. We have an audience that's 8 years younger than an audience that watches NFL games on linear. And so all of that lines up with what the NFL is looking for. They want to reach newer fans. They want to reach younger fans. And this schedule reflects it. We have the Super Bowl champ Philadelphia Eagles twice on this schedule.
Yeah.
We have Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen twice on this schedule.
And Jay, it's a lot of divisional games, right? mean, I've never seen a slate of divisional games like this coming in at you on a Thursday night before.
10 divisional matchups. And those are so key because they're always going to matter, and they're going to matter more because of the impact on the division. So really, our whole team is ecstatic.
Al Michaels come on.
Al Michaels is very happy. We had a lot of texts going on yesterday. The team is very
excited.
excited.
Kirk's coming back also, yeah?
Kirk's coming back. Just a great.
Awesome. Great
and then,
team.
Our halftime crew with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Richard Sherman, Andrew Whitworth. So they're a fun crew, but I think the younger audience has really responded to that. We've really tried to really get people right off the field who are fresh faces. We talk about, if you guys ever came to one of our games at a pregame, we talk about how many of the current players come up to these guys, and it's like nonstop. They come up to Sherm, they come up to Witt, because they just got done battling with these guys a couple of years ago, right? So they know the league in and out, and we're having a lot of fun. We can't wait to get going this year.
Well, it's not just the NFL either, right? I mean, you guys had a pretty big year. I mean, let's talk about the NBA a little bit, right? And by the way, talk about Thursday nights. You guys are going to own Thursday night sporting, right? Because you got the doubleheaders on Thursday, you got the doubleheaders on Friday. We're talking basketball here. Yep. And then I think you have some Black Friday sprinkled in there also, not to mention 6 out of the next 11 NBA finals. Yep. I mean, that's some slate. Well done there. I mean, exciting stuff. Exciting stuff.
The NBA is a big deal for us, big deal for the company, and that's an 11-year deal, starts in the fall. As you said, just an incredible package of playoff games. We'll have about a third of the playoffs. We'll have every year, the play-in games, and we'll also have the in-season tournament. And we think that in-season tournament's just going to continue to grow, and we have a bunch of ideas there. And we've introduced some of our talent there. We're going to have Blake Griffin, Dirk Nowitzki, Steve Nash, Dwayne Wade, like Candace Parker. So, and the chemistry I'm already seeing with that group is just fantastic.
Dwayne's the best. Dwayne Wade is the best. Minnie Mello, I love that commercial. He's the best.
And you know why Hannah is here? Because this is #1 entertainment, especially for a dude like me, Hannah.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask, what are you planning on doing with the viewing experience on Prime for people? We saw NBC come out with all these changes that they're doing to Peacock for the NBA. You got graphic overlays, statistics, a mobile game coming out. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of innovation from us. We're going to take the exact same approach we took with Thursday Night Football. So for anyone who's seen some of the AI innovations we brought to Thursday Night Football in our alternative cast called Prime Vision, we've created something called defensive alerts, which essentially highlights players that may blitz, but this is happening real time in the broadcast without latency. So when you work with Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's what a quarterback has to identify. And so we've rolled out a number of those on Thursday Night Football, but now pointing to NBA, you're going to see that similar investment. And I think we have a pretty unique approach. We have a whole team in Israel of data scientists, AI experts, machine learning experts. This is kind of in our DNA. And the special sauce is really combining those people with people who know the game, like a Blake Griffin and a Dwayne Wade, combined with our production people who know how to storytell. It's very easy just to throw a lot of data up on the screen. That's not super helpful. It's got to be concise. It's got to really advance the education of the fan and the storytelling. So you're going to see exact same approach we took with Thursday Night Football, and stay tuned for the details on that.
Well, Jay, I'd love to stick with that theme of storytelling because your Amazon original sports documentaries are just unbelievable. Man. Now we're talking Bye Bye Barry, we're talking Coach Prime, but what stories haven't been told yet, what's coming up?
It's a good question. There's a lot more to be told. And I think, what's interesting is sports are the greatest unscripted show on earth. And there's so much drama that happens, and there's so much drama that happens behind the scenes that you can't really learn about until some time passes and people are ready to talk about it. And you saw that with Bye Bye Barry, for example.
I want to now. You are a native Detroiter. I'm a native Detroiter, and I want to get to this schedule that we got for the Detroit
Baby Blue.
Now, look, we got the second toughest schedule overall, and I don't even want to get into what the road game is all about.
I am incredibly excited, but I'm with you. That is a tough schedule. It is a brutal, brutal schedule. And obviously, we've lost a couple of assistant coaches, fantastic coaches. But I trust Dan Campbell. We're going to get to the promised land sooner or later here.
Well, Jay, I have to ask you, because, when I think of Amazon and what a beast it is, and, in terms of just the company itself and what it does, and then I look at, the suite of, forget about the NBA, forget about the NFL for a second. I'm talking one championship, Premier Boxing. I'm Champions League football in the UK, cricket, New Zealand cricket in India, Copa football. Brazil. I'm just looking at this slate, and I'm like, how do you manage that? Like, what's your day job must look like? And are you traveling to these places and dealing with the local providers and all the? How does that all? What's your day job look like here?
I have a very fun job, first of all.
Really?
My wife often says, they are going to pay you, right? I'm like, I think so. Listen, this is a childhood dream. I grew up playing sports. I love sports. No one's probably played or watched more than I have. And so I love it. And yes, we are really all over the world. In fact, it's interesting. We started our entry into sports in the UK. I was over there at the time, actually, and we started that with our entry into the Premier League.
Wow.
And that was around 2017. Okay. And really, it was the first major league that ever put any games on streaming exclusively in the home country.
And that was only 8 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've learned a lot over that time, and we've built up the credibility. And now, as you said, we have Champions League in the UK, Germany, Italy.
Wimbledon in Germany. This is crazy.
Wimbledon in Germany. We have the French Open in France. We have soccer in LATAM. And so, and we also have hockey in Canada. So what you're really seeing is we are focused on having the biggest tier one sports in every country. And so it's less about having worldwide rights necessarily because fans live in one country per se. And there's only a few sports that really are worldwide. Now, NBA is one of them. They've done a fantastic job, and that deal is a worldwide deal for us that we're incredibly excited about. But all of that innovation and all that time spent is really why we've been able to have such a quality streaming experience, such picture quality, because we've been at this for a long time. And what we did in Europe was part of the reason that gave the NFL confidence that we could do that here.
Our thanks to Amazon Prime Video's head of sports and advertising, Jay Marine, for joining us, as well as our own Hannah Miller. Up next, we'll talk to a NASCAR trailblazer, Katherine Legge. For Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo. We're all in on racing the rest of the way as we get ready for the Indy 500 this weekend, plus a slate of big NASCAR races, including the Coca-Cola 600 trailblazing. NASCAR racer Katherine Legge will be competing in that race. And earlier this week, our own Vanessa Perdomo got a chance to sit down with her. Let's take a listen to their conversation.
You're the first woman to compete in the NASCAR Cup Series since 2018, right? And it's surprising. It's not surprising, right? But given how female athletes have been treated over the last few years, right? But 7 years. Tell me about your journey, because you've been professional for a very long time. This isn't new, right? But tell me about your journey to get here.
Yeah, a long time. You're aging me now. But I have literally driven everything in my career. Like, I have one of the most diverse careers in racing. I've driven open wheel and electric cars and sports cars, and I did a handful of NASCAR races back in 2018, and I loved it. And I wanted to do more of it, but it's almost a different sport. It's not, but it's a different paddock, it's different people, and I just didn't know how to break into it per se. So along come Elf, and with the most wonderful partnership where they're truly empowering women, right? Like, they say it, a lot of people say it these days, and it's just a buzzword, but they actually stand behind it and they mean it. And we were going to do the Indy 500 this year, and we didn't get a car, so we're pivoting to NASCAR, and we went all in on NASCAR. And so I feel incredibly fortunate that I have such a powerhouse company standing alongside me, breaking down these barriers. And it is surprising that it's been 7 years, but it's also, it's a really tough business to be in. Whether you're man, woman, black, white, no matter what it is, it's really tough. So hopefully there'll be more following in my footsteps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get into that, the partnership with Elf a little bit more, and because they were your partners, also went in IndyCar before, right? And I listened to you on your podcast. You had talked about it and said, the event last year that you did with them was one of the most rewarding of your career. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and on the partnership there?
It really was. It was special, and I had no idea. Okay, so going into Indy last year, it was the second year that I'd partnered with them, but they wanted to go do it in a big, splashy, cool way and really make a difference because, like I said, they really do stand behind their company ethos. And so they're out there empowering all these women and some men by making them look and feel better, right? And then they say, okay, we want to do activations. We want a pink car. We want X, Y, and Z. And I'm thinking, oh, goodness, pink car. That's so cliche. Like, oh, that girl's driving the pink car. It was the coolest thing that ever happened. Because what I'd been trying to do for like 20 years of professional driving is rally the women and have this girl power movement. And I'd tried supporting other young and upcoming female drivers, and I do that because I feel like without men and women, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I think it's important to realize that it takes both. And so we went into Indy, and they had this big activation where they saluted the women that had come before me, Janet, Guthrie, Lynch, and James, Danica, and really kind of like paid homage to them and to me at the same time, and got behind all the women at the racetrack. And for the first time ever, the women fans were seen, right? Because there've been a lot of sponsors on a lot of race cars, but they were the first beauty brand. Yes. And everybody can relate to Elf, right? Like, so there was this massive, like, I don't know, all the women got along. There was no competition between them. They were like Team Elf, Team Katherine, let's get behind the pink car. And it was just this really cool thing that happened that I'm really hopeful will happen on the NASCAR side this year, because we're doing the same thing at Scarlet. And they've got a big activation. It's going to be slightly different. It's going to be really cool. It's centered around their jumbo Power Grip primer. So it's like a teal car instead of a pink car. It's beautiful. And I'm hoping that the same thing happens with that fan base as well. That, they all get just as excited as IndyCar did.
Yeah. I love that what you were saying there. And when you first started talking about, oh, no, pink car and the woman's driving the pink car. But that's, I feel like, what was happening for a while in women's sports was beauty brands weren't getting involved. And maybe even the people running the teams weren't asking them to get involved because they were like, oh, just because we're women doesn't mean we should have beauty brands. But the reality is, you can have both the traditional, sponsors, the beer sponsors, the airlines and all of that, but still have the beauty brands because you're speaking directly to your fans, to your consumers, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And I think there's this, I don't know, misconception, let's say, in women's sports that you shouldn't be seen as women. You shouldn't be seen as feminine. And I was super guilty of it for the first 15 years of my career or whatever it was, that I just wanted to be seen as a race car driver. I didn't wear makeup. I didn't want to play on the fact that I'm female, and I still don't want to play on that fact. But I do think that I can be authentically who I am, which is I want to be feminine, right? Like who doesn't want to be seen as attractive or feminine, or if that's what you want, then go for it. But I think there was this thing where you should just be seen as another robot or driver, or in case of soccer, like, I don't know, it's like, it's a sport. We shouldn't be too girly. And that's rubbish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that it's changed too, but it's, like you said, it's authentic. Some female athletes don't wear makeup, but some like to completely do a whole face and go out there on the field. And you can be an amazing athlete and still be super girly, super whatever you want to be, but
Yes. No, I totally get it. And I think you should be able to do, wear whatever you want to wear and feel however you feel.
And I think that speaks to what has really unlocked, would you say, for women's sports and the growth in the last few years. It's finally speaking to women's sports fans as a separate entity almost, and they consume in a different way. Or how would you think about that?
I think it's segregated. So I think if you look at it, let's say the last decade has changed, but before that, it was just sports, right? There wasn't women's sports, male sports. But the women were not watching women's sports. The women were watching, if they watched any sport, they were watching male sports. And I think now they realized that there are women's sports, like women's soccer. I had no idea how huge it was over here until I came over here and experienced it. And you have the best team in the world, right? So I think that you have to get the women rallying around that and supporting it like the men support the men's soccer. And there's absolutely no reason, and I think you're seeing it a lot more now, why there isn't crossover. You know, women watch men's sports or sports and men can watch women's sports. And so I think that it's much more acceptable. You know, there was a misconception again that women's sports was not as good as men's sports because they weren't going as far or shooting as much or whatever it may be. But now you've got like Caitlin Clark with WNBA and like changed the game. And you get these people, women's tennis, you had like Selena change the game. And so I think that men aren't just watching it now to be like, oh, she's hot. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as we talk about that, and we're talking about the growth of women's sports as a whole, one of the things I do hear, though, from a lot of people is, how come there aren't more, women drivers in Formula One and NASCAR and things like that, as they are now watching the WNBA and things like that. So when you look at that, do you think that racing has more to do to catch up? Like, how do you think there can be more women in racing? So it's not, 7 years until the next person.
I think racing's different. And I think racing's unique because there is absolutely no reason why we can't compete with the guys. It's not an outright strength or fitness thing, right? Like, I am not going to bench what some guy can bench if we're both training the same. It's just physically an impossibility. But can I do the same thing 300 times, 3,000 times, and do the repetitive thing and take the G-forces and everything else that racing takes? Absolutely, I can. And there's absolutely no reason why we should be segregated. And what's really interesting about racing is, as soon as they did segregate the women, there haven't been any women turn pro. So if you look back to when I turned pro, there was like a handful of us at the time. There was Danica, there was me, there was Simona, there was Bia, there was like 6 or 7 of us. And since then, they've kind of either retired or like Bia went and had babies. Like they put the women in an all-female series called the F1 Academy. It was the W Series, transition to the F1 Academy. And because they're not competing against the best of the best, they're competing against each other. They're not getting as good as they could be if they were out there in the real world racing against the guys. So I think that segregating us in that situation has made for this big gap that they're not going out and they're not turning pro. There are no women in IndyCar, right? There are no women in the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series. There are maybe two gold-rated women in sports cars. So what happened? And all I can think of is by putting them all together, they're not racing against the best of the best. If you're playing against the best, it makes you better, right? If you're anything in life, if you're competing against the best, it makes you better. So I think that they've done them a massive disservice. While I think it's great that it's opened the doors and it's highlighted women in sports and women in racing, I think that it should be like a year entry level max, and then they should be supported against the guys to be able to be the best.
Right. So I had spoken to one of the F1 Academy drivers who now has gone on to a next series and talked about, she told me about one of her struggles was getting sponsors to get her time in the car. And I think that's something not a lot of people understand. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and how it's so important as a driver? You have to get your own sponsors to get time in the car, and it really is one of the struggles to make it so high.
It is, and I think that's another reason why women have struggled in the past. We haven't had beauty brands like Elf come on board. And it's tough because you have to look at it like a business. Like it's not just about driving the car. You have to find partners and sponsors to follow you. You have to do PR and you have to do like all the things that surround it, which make it incredibly difficult. The guys have to do it too. Right. Like, let's be real. It's hard for everybody unless you come from an uber wealthy family and your dad can spend $6 million a year on an IndyCar ride. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know many people who that happens to be honest. But I think it has been a bit harder. Well, it's gone for you and it's gone against you being female in racing, because it's gone for you in that you get a lot more eyeballs because you get a lot more attention because you're an anomaly. Right. And it used to be like a gimmick, which I hated. I wanted it to be more mainstream. So in a way that helps because sponsors that come on board get way more bang for their buck because they get a lot more eyeballs. And that's at the end of the day what you want, the B2B, the attention, et cetera, et cetera.
That's NASCAR driver Katherine Legge speaking with Vanessa Perdomo. Up next, we stick with fast cars and talk with the president of IndyCar and Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Doug Boles. I'm Michael Barr, and you are listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Damian, Sassower, and Vanessa Perdomo. The greatest spectacle in racing is this weekend, and it's looking to have a huge audience. The Indianapolis 500 will hit Indianapolis Motor Speedway with its grandstand sold out for the first time in nearly a decade, plus a local TV blackout that had been in place since 1951 was lifted, which will boost the TV numbers. Here to take us through all of the prep for the race and more is IndyCar and Indianapolis Motor Speedway president Doug Boles. Doug, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Well, thanks for having me. This is the best time of the year for me as we get ready for the weekend and the running of the Indianapolis 500. So I love your energy level kicking this off because that's exactly how I feel today as I'm just ready to get going.
Let me explain. First of all, anybody that's going to call me, don't call me because I've got, first of all, I'm starting off with the Grand Prix of Monaco. And then, of course, the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500. And then we're going to finish it off with the Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR. Doug, what an exciting time for racing, especially at the Brickyard.
Yeah, you captured it. It is an amazing day for racing. You can literally get up in the morning, watch an F1 race, and tune into an IndyCar race, watch the Indianapolis 500, take a break for a few minutes, and go right back into the Scarlet event, the 600 down Scarlet Motor Speedway. So, yeah, it's a fun weekend of racing, and it really is sort of that last weekend as we all roll into summer and just sort of that attitude we all have when you get out of winter and spring, especially in the Midwest, and summer's around the corner. But excited about the 109th running of the Indy 500. Of all those events we just talked about, we've been around a lot longer than most, and it's pretty amazing just to see this place fill up with 350,000 people on race day, and just the way we all celebrate summer around the corner, certainly the race itself.
Doug, I hate to go there, but it has been a busy week for you. Senior leadership, Team Penske, cheating scandal. Talk to us a little bit about what happened there. I mean, Joseph Newgarden trying to become the first driver to win 3 straight Indy 500s. Now he's a plus 1,000. What's he in the back row? Talk to us a little bit about what happened this week, what the implications are ahead of this weekend.
Yeah, on our last qualifying to get into the Fast 12, so the fastest 12 cars in qualifying on last Saturday get a chance on Sunday to compete for positions 1 through 12. And in the technical inspection line where the car went through technical inspection, the Joseph Newgarden car and the Will Power car, both Team Penske cars, unfortunately failed the inspection. And it was a part in the back of the car that is a part that you are not allowed to modify in any way. You have to use it as supplied. And the team had made some modifications to it, and there's an argument over why the piece was modified. The team says it was modified for for looks, make it look better. And that's, Team Penske's cars do look better than others. But others said, hey, there's maybe a performance advantage there. And so the rule said you have to start at the back of your qualifying group, which would have put them at 11th and 12th. And as we really sat down and thought about it, this is the biggest race in the world, and just making sure our integrity there is paramount. And it was on such a grand stage, and there was some question about it. We decided to move those cars to the back of the grid, so they will start 32nd and 33rd. So yeah, it's been a challenging week, really talking through that, and it's taken a little bit of the focus away from the excitement of 350,000 people and spend a lot of time talking about rules.
For the audience, the part that's being talked about is called the attenuator. And what it does is that, and you're right, you cannot alter that, but what it does is if a driver hits with the rear of the car into the wall, it's supposed to help cushion the blow. But then that's when it all ran into problems, Vanessa.
Right. And I mean, obviously the main thing everyone is concerned about is safety, right, Doug, of course. And in the wake of something like this, when you have Penske, who owns the team and they own the Indianapolis Winter Speedway and IndyCar, is this where you look at it and say, hey, maybe we do need things to run independently, and because outside forces may look and say there are some sort of, favoritism potentially, or to get away from the idea of favoritism?
Yeah, I think the latter is really where it is. It's an optics issue for sure. When you have officiating that is, Roger Penske didn't have anything to do with the decision we made, or wasn't involved at all in the conversation and the teching side of things. But if you're a competitor in the series, and Roger Penske owns a car in the series, and he owns the series and the racetrack, at least for the Indianapolis 500, there is an optics issue, and that is a challenge. We've had a couple of these with Team Penske. We have problems with other teams too. They're not the only one, but it is a challenge when the company and the person that owns the series is also being penalized. And I think for me, in the penalty that they received, it's maybe, I need to go back. I've only been in the job on the IndyCar side for 90 days, but it's maybe one of the most severe, if not the most severe, penalty that has been given to a team for an infraction, moving them to the back of the field, fined each of the teams $100,000, suspended two of their key personnel, and then took away their qualifying points. Hopefully people see that in those decisions there that we were not taking it easy on Team Penske. Unfortunately for them, they have to live up to a higher standard at some level, because they have to make sure there's no appearance of optics. So we've talked about, do we outsource the officiating, so race control and tech inspection, to a completely solely independent organization that has nothing to do with Roger Penske, Penske Entertainment, or the series?
Well, Doug, let's talk about some good news here. This is the first ever Indy 500 with your new broadcast partner, Fox Sports. You've got a sold-out crowd of nearly 350,000 people. I think you sold out the grandstands for the first time in nearly a decade. So, what's driving the interest? I mean, talk to us a little bit about, this weekend, what the fan engagement's going to look like. What comes next?
Well, certainly, I think the Fox relationship, this is the first year with Fox. We were with ABC forever, and then we had a nice run with NBC, and we just switched to Fox beginning in 2025. And the promotion that they've put into the relationship has been outstanding in terms of the way they use, we have ads in the Super Bowl. There's all kinds of promotions, even across their NASCAR platform, which has been really helpful. So I think that's driven some of it, but I think a lot of it has been just the racing over the last a few years has been really good here at the Speedway. There's a lot of tradition around the Speedway, the number of people that come back for generations and year over year. And we're beginning to build stars again in the IndyCar series like we had several years ago. And I think that's helpful. So people like Joseph Newgarden, who will start from the back, he'll be entertaining to watch as he comes forward. Pato O'Ward has turned into this just phenomenal superstar, popular race car driver in our series. So I think those all of those components together are really what make it so successful and gave us an opportunity to sell out the 232,000 seats we have in our grandstands.
And you got to keep your eye on Kyle Larson because he is going to do the double. He's going to do the Indianapolis 500, and then he's going to try to get to the, well, I like to call it the World 600 because I'm old. And but he is someone to watch. He's going to try to do it.
Yeah, he did it last year, and the rain kept him from actually being able to get in a car once he got to Charlotte. He had a really good run here in the 500 last year. He had a pit violation, speeding violation that hurt him a little bit, so he didn't finish as high up as I think he might have. He's been really consistent this year. He's had a couple of incidents, which in a lot of ways people say is probably helpful because he knows where the edge of the car is, which will make him smarter on race day. Last year, he was able to skate through and not have one of those instances. Kurt Busch, NASCAR driver that ran the Indy 500 a few years ago, had a crash on the last practice before the Indy 500. He will tell you that was maybe the best thing to happen to him, to know where the edge of the car was, and he came and ran in the top 10 all day in that race. So I think Kyle Larson's still definitely going to be a factor, and what a story that would be if he could even finish in the top 3 or 4 here at the Speedway and then head on over to Charlotte and have a great finish over there.
Doug, when we're talking about, other great stories happening for the Indy 500, we had to talk about the rookie who won pole position this year. I was actually, I've been following along with Prema because I came to the first race of the season in St. Petersburg, and I did a story on Prema. They've joined IndyCar for the first time this year. Robert Schwartzman, rookie, won pole position on his first ever oval track. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, tell me about that. Tell us about that story and how quickly Prema's been able to really adapt. How amazing! Yeah, so
for sure, Prema's an Italian-based team that decided to join the IndyCar series this year, which is a pretty tall task. You're competing against teams that have been doing this for years, some of them for decades, and they know the cars in and out. They know the tracks in and out. You're stepping into shark-infested waters, and they've struggled, to be honest with you, for most of the season, trying to get their feet under them, really understand it. And going into qualifying weekend, I think they would have been maybe one of the teams, 2 or 3 teams that we would have thought might be at risk of not even making the race because we weren't sure they could be fast enough. And then when Robert had such a great qualifying effort on Saturday that allowed him to compete Sunday in the top 12, I think everybody came out of that, thought that's very cool, but they're probably going to end up in 11th or 12th. And then for Robert Schwartzman and that team to sit on the pole, to be the fastest of qualifying on Sunday is such a great story. And Robert is he just celebrated in a way that I think was our fans really appreciate. We're looking forward to that.
Talk to us a little bit, Doug, about what comes next. How are you approaching your fan base, trying to grow it, trying to grow the sport?
Yeah, it's really important that we focus on the platform that our new TV partner gives us with Fox and really trying to extend the reach of the IndyCar brand. And I think we've got a great opportunity to do that with Fox. The other thing I'm really focused on is the Indianapolis 500, obviously the large, huge event. We need to figure out a way to make sure that our other events, our other races become events. So working with promoters to continue to elevate those. Vanessa talked about St. Petersburg is a great way to kick the season off. It feels like an event. Long Beach feels like an event, but we need all 17 of our races to feel like events. So that's going to take a lot of work in those individual markets. So supporting our promoters as they go forward. And then, as you noted, we have to get younger. We're all trying to get younger. We've gotten younger a little bit over the last 10 years, but we have to get substantially younger. So things like our EDM concert we do here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway are connecting to some of those young personalities, finding ways to really reach out to that next generation of potential fan. That is a priority for us. So we've got really continuing to work on how do we make that happen. And then from a commercial standpoint, working with our teams, bringing in the right partners. And when those partners come in as sponsors on teams, we got to get them to activate. We need to see brands that people know in retail outlets. So whether it's picking a Pepsi up out of the convenience store, or whether Andretti Global brings in somebody like Chili's, how are we working with those partners to build our brand? So it's a combination of things. There's no silver bullet to continue to grow the sport, but working on all of those as we go forward.
Our thanks to Doug Boles joining us. He is the president of IndyCar and Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And thank you for joining us. For my colleagues Damian Sassower and Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big old money in the world of sports. And if you missed anything, catch it on demand now with the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.